Hi, everyone. Hadley here down with Hillcrest Tennis. We are doing our live today. We're going to have a little courtside chat. We're going to be talking about tactics that are going to help you beat a player that is, if you're a 3-5 player, helping you beat a player that is a 4-0 player. So we're going to be talking about some of those sabotage tactics that we discussed 2 weeks ago. And we're also going to be discussing some of the tactics that you can use that will help your strengths towards their weaknesses. So here we go. We're going to get started. So last week we talked a little bit about, or 2 weeks ago, we talked a little bit about those sabotage tactics and being able to deploy them in times when it's necessary. So as a little recap, sabotage tactics are tactics that you can bother your opponent. So your job is to make your opponent feel uncomfortable, not to make them feel comfortable on the court. And so if we can deploy certain shots or specific strategies that will create that uncertainty for your opponent, that's what we're looking for. So today I'm going to give you about 5 tactics that will help you with those opponents that are just slightly better than you, and how you can kind of turn the tables on them and create some wins for yourself. So the first one is consistency. Really, it all comes down to making your opponent hit a lot of balls, and you want to out rally your opponent, and that's the biggest thing, is putting one more ball in play than your opponent does. And especially when you're playing a player that's just slightly better than you. So as an example, we'll use this example throughout the discussion, is if you're kind of a middle of the road 3-5 player and you're playing a middle of the road 4-0 player, and there's just that slight difference. All of these tactics, and that goes for a 3-0 to 3-5, that kind of thing. So, but all of these tactics are applicable across the board. So, you want to play high percentage tennis and high margin tennis. So, as an example, I had a lesson this morning and we discussed, they're playing singles today versus when they typically play doubles. And so they said, I hit a lot of balls wide. Where's my best place to hit it? And so we talked a little bit about, you can hit the ball up the middle, but just make sure that it's deep. So, you're trying to hit it somewhere between, around this, into this threshold here. So you're pushing your opponent off the court, going back. And so the deeper the ball you hit, now you're going to be getting balls that are going to be in this zone here, okay, right in this middle area, so that you can dictate play from here. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later. But, so I would say high percentage tennis is hitting the ball. You can hit the ball cross court. So if you're hitting the ball from here to here, you're going to be hitting cross court into this zone here, or cross court into this zone over here. Trying to keep the ball out of this square here. So anything outside. We've talked about the V as well. The V at the net. So if you can create space moving out and back on that court is what we're really looking for. So that's high percentage and high percentage tennis and high margin tennis. So giving yourself margin for error, nice high balls over the net. So if you think about the net stacked on top of each other, that's the height that we're looking for. You don't have to have it 10 feet over the net. That's we're talking moonball tactics there, but we're just looking for height over that net, and the height will give you depth as well. Okay, so we talked about consistency, high percentage tennis. We're talking about those kinds of tactics are sabotage tactics to your opponent. Especially if your opponent's rally threshold is 3 or 4 balls. If you can make 4 or 5 balls, now you've really taken their consistency out, and obviously you made 1 more ball, they make 4, you make 5, you win the point. So it's really simple, but it's very hard for us to transition that into match play. And so being really conscious about how you approach your tactic in regards to consistency is you really just have to think about what your opponent's threshold is, and you'll know when you start doing your warm-up, you'll know what that threshold is. Okay. So, and then going back to some more sabotage tactics, it would be like a slice or a higher topspin ball, short angle. So again, hitting inside the service box, but off at an angle. But then also being aggressive and coming to the net. That puts a lot of pressure on an opponent and they feel like you're attacking them, and so that's pushing them back off of the court. Okay, so tactic number 2. So we talked about consistency is number 1. Tactic number 2 is finding your opponent's threshold and weakness and breaking them down. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about when you step onto the court, you need to grade your opponent. So when we talk about grading, we talk about, if you were gonna in school and you're A to F, your grade, I would want to grade my opponent. So you break them down into zones. Okay, so we've got Serena here, and so zone 1 is from the knee to the ankle or knee to the feet. Okay, so you would grade like how well do they look like they're going to move? Do they look like they're a little bit more flat-footed? That kind of thing. And then knee to waist. Do they look like they're fast? Are they strong? Are they just average? So you're gonna give them that grade. And then the waist to shoulder, give them that grade. And then the shoulder to and above is also going to be another zone 4. Okay, so grading your opponent so that you can kind of look at them and you kind of can make a physical assessment of what your opponent could possibly do. And that's just kind of like first look at your opponent as to how they might handle certain balls, short balls, wide balls. Do they look like they can endure a lot of running? Do they look like they're fast? Are they a little bit slower? Up and back, side to side, those kinds of things. Do you think that they're going to be strong upper body, so if they can handle those higher balls? Or do you think that, are they quick on the court? Those kinds of things. All right. So I always like to, so once you've graded your opponent, you always have a self-assessment as well. It's like, what are my strengths? And then how can I exploit their weaknesses with my strengths? And so making that assessment will really help. Okay. One other thing is not going strength to strength. So, for example, my forehand to somebody else's forehand, I don't want that to break down. So if I can go my forehand to their backhand, that will help my confidence, and then I'm breaking down their weakness. Okay. And then also finding what they're good at. That's important as well, so that sometimes you have to hit to their strength to open up their weakness. And so recognizing recognizing what they do well, and that goes along with that zone assessment on your opponent. What are they going to do well, and how can you how can you exploit their weakness, but also hitting to their strength as well. All right. And then one other thing is we don't have to be the hero all the time. We don't have to hit the winner. It's not going to be this outstanding shot every single time. Sometimes it's going to be ugly, and that is okay. And so just recognizing that can happen, and that's okay. Okay, so tactic number 3 is finishing the point moving forward. So the more you can, again, we talked about dictating play in the middle of the court. Here is what we're looking for. Okay, and so again, hitting that ball deep, and so hitting the ball deep and in the middle, or deep wide, is going to create opportunities for you to get short middle balls, and then you can dictate play moving forward. And one of the key things here is that approach shot is not going to be a winner. Sometimes it will be, and that's great, but other times it's going to be a setup shot for the volley. Okay, and so the other benefit to moving forward and being aggressive is you're going to have shorter points. Okay, so shorter points means that you can last longer out on the court, and it also means that you're setting the tone for the match. You don't have to be out there grinding all day. If you can be smart about how you come forward to the net, you make those points shorter, and it really causes a mental and emotional toll on your opponent. Moving forward opens up the angles to the court. It makes the court wider, and so you can use that width a little bit better than you can if you're 6 feet behind the baseline. And again, it sends a mental message to your opponent that you're willing to be the aggressor, and it definitely puts them on the defensive. And so that definitely can cause a toll on your opponent and how they approach each point. Okay. So number 4 is making your opponent play offense on your terms. So, if your opponent doesn't like to come, if they don't move well up and back, bring them up to the net using shorter angles, kind of off the side, and so they have to move forward. And then if they're not comfortable at the net, that's a great place for you to bring them up and make them play the point out at the net. And then now you can kind of dictate play. Okay, and the one thing I would say don't do is don't allow your opponent to dictate the pace of play, so how quickly you're playing those points, and also don't let them dictate the pace of the ball. So you're not wanting them to be either moonballing. You don't want them to dictate play that way, and you don't want them to dictate play with that ball being hit 100 miles an hour where they're comfortable. So it all really kind of stems back to making your opponent feel uncomfortable. That's your number one job. So whatever that looks like on that particular day for that particular opponent, make them uncomfortable and bring them out of their element, and that will create doubt for them, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, and number 5, I think, is really the most important, is enjoy the match. Just recognize too, especially if you're the underdog, recognizing that there's a little bit of pride there on, if you're playing a 4-0 and you're a 3-5, they're going to want to get off the court really quick, and they're going to be a little bit flat-footed. They're not going to be ready for it. So recognize that. And then as the match goes on, there might be a little bit of chatter, and recognizing that, there is that that emotional pressure that they're feeling. So they're going to want to get off the court really quick. So again, not letting them dictate the pace of play. And if they recognize that you're enjoying the moment, if you're calm and collected, then again, that kind of snowballs into issues for your opponent. And again, making them feel uncomfortable. And you've all played and seen, like the chatter in outside the fence, oh, so-and-so is beating so-and-so. And, so recognizing that there is that element off the court that can play into what's going on the court. And, but again, I hope these tactics help. But it's really important that we recognize what's going on the court, recognizing what patterns of play we're getting drawn into and what patterns of play we're putting out, so that we're not stuck playing, again, strength to strength or weakness to strength. And so that we're being smart about that, smart about how we approach our matches, how we approach that consistency piece. And I really hope these helped. Good luck in your matches this week and for next week. Stay Hillcrest strong. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.